right, well, we are going to go ahead and get started. Unfortunately, Bob Palmer, who was going to do tips and tricks for Toastmaster meetings, he is not able to join us. So depending on how much time we have left at the end, we'll either do a roundtable of tips from the room, or we may do one other activity. We'll just have to see where we land.
Give it to Michael. He's always got a tip of the day.
All right, if you could go ahead and mute yourselves. Our speakers this evening are going to be first me. I'm going to do our pop quiz on Zoom settings. And then next will be Kevin Maevers. And then Zieper, who's here from Founders District. He's going to talk about hybrid meetings. And as I said, at the end, we'll do a roundtable or a different activity, just depending on the time. Let me share my screen. All right, pop quiz. Does Zoom do that?
Yes. I did last.
Yes.
True.
True or false? You can use the space bar to temporarily unmute yourself.
True.
Yes.
And I'll go over the answers at the end, but do continue to shout them out. True or false? The meeting host can read all chat, including the private messages.
Yes.
False.
False.
Okay, so we have both true and false, all right? True or false? Meeting settings cannot be changed once the meeting has started.
True.
False.
Oh, I love it. Half the room shout out true and the other half shout out false. It makes me feel good to think that this might be something people don't know the answer to. All right, true or false? Other people can take control of your computer when you're sharing your screen.
False.
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 No longer true.
True or false? If you have a paid account, you can create a custom meeting ID and passcode for your meeting.
True.
True.
True or false? You must have a paid account to use Zoom polls.
False.
And I don't know.
True or false? The person who owns the Zoom account must start the meeting.
False.
Depends.
And true or false? If the host leaves the meeting will end.
True. False.
False.
Depends.
Somebody knows how I think there. All right. I've noticed when I go to Zoom meetings that there seems to be a lot of confusion about what you can or cannot do. And part of the problem is that there are so many options when it comes to Zoom. For example, it depends on what kind of account type you have. If you have an paid account, if you're free, or if you're just attending a meeting anonymously. It depends on whether you're on a computer, on a tablet like an iPad, or on your phone. It also depends on whether you're using a browser or the client app and what version the app is at. So if you're using an older version, features might not be available, or they might be located someplace different than where another person might see them. And then last but not least, you see different features, whether you're a participant, a host, or an account owner. So here's what I'd like you to keep in mind. There are 4 different places that you can set Zoom settings. And some of the settings appear in more than one. Some settings are only possible in one location. So it can be very confusing. And I just want to say, this is not a training session. So I'm not going to go through and explain all the features and how they work and so on and so on. My goal is to just acquaint you with hopefully some features you didn't know that were there. And then you'll have the opportunity, of course, to go research things on your own. And this recording of this video will be available through our YouTube channel if you want to refer back to it. The first place that we're mostly familiar with settings being is in the meeting room itself. And so there are options down at the bottom and you can change different settings there. Then there's the Zoom client application. And I think a lot of people don't realize that there are settings here. If you open the client, and if you're not familiar with the client, this is the icon that you click like in the start menu and it opens up. This is not accessing Zoom through a browser, okay? So this is a standalone client application. If you click on your picture, the little menu pops up and you then click settings there. And then you have a whole bunch of different options. And one of the things that you want to be careful of is if you're playing with these options, you have to remember to come back to the client to change whatever options you set. For example, I checked this use dual monitors options because I use 2 screens. And then I couldn't remember where that was. And I was trying to create some training and things were popping up on other screens when I wanted it to pop up on my main screen. I finally had to send a support ticket and that's where they told me. So just keep in mind, the Zoom client also has settings and some of these settings can only be set here. Then there is the Zoom account. So this is where you log in with your email address and you have to put in your password. You have to do it through a browser like Internet Explorer or Google Chrome. In the personal section, there is a settings button. That's what I'm showing here. But also in the admin section, there's an account settings button. If you set things up in account settings, for example, let's say that you lock the waiting room options, that means everybody who signs in and only has access to the personal settings, they're stuck with whatever you set in the admin account setting. So this is really only applicable to people or companies where you have 2 or more people who are all using the same Zoom account. So we want to be sure to differentiate between the personal settings and the admin account settings. Oh, so what I'll do is on the different screens, because some of them do look alike, I put a check mark in the box next to what it is that we're looking at. So here we're looking at personal admin account settings via a browser. Okay. True or false, you can use the space bar to temporarily unmute yourselves. I think almost everyone said true. This is true, but this is a feature that can be turned on and off. I remember I was in a meeting and somebody was trying to use the space bar because they'd always done it that way to unmute themselves and it wasn't working and they couldn't figure out why. The place that you turn this on and off is in the Zoom client. Okay, so here, this is one of those things where if you're playing around, you want to make sure that you will check this box so that the space bar works to unmute yourself. True or false, the meeting host can read all chat, including the private messages. This is false. I know people on the internet are swearing up and down, left and right, that their teachers can read their comments. Zoom states very clearly on their support site, private messages between participants are not viewable by the host. This includes if you are, let's say, a school, your professor cannot read your private chats. Something else.
But they can, as I understand, at least in the education one, turn off the ability to have private chats.
Yes, that is a configurable setting.
Speaking as a teacher, I think that's good. They can't pass notes if you won't let them, right?
Exactly.
That's good.
True or false, meeting settings cannot be changed once the meeting has started. False, it depends on the feature. So here's how you know if it's a setting that you can change while the meeting is in flight. If you can access it in the meeting room, you can change it. And I want to point this one out in particular. A lot of people have their Zoom accounts set up so that participants cannot share the slides. And then they think, oh, you got to send me the slides as the host so I can share them, or you just go without. No, what you can do is right in the meeting, you click that little arrow next to share screen, and then a menu pops up and you can change it right there. So your participants can share even if the original setting was not allowing them to share. Here, as Michael pointed out, you can change it right in the meeting again if participants can chat only with the host or chat with everyone. And what a lot of people I don't think realize is that there are also settings behind the security button. So if you're the host, you can click the security button and you can change any of these things here. Now, if some of the things that you cannot change while the meeting is in flight, for example, is if you do not have the polls feature turned on, you have to wait till the meeting is over, turn the feature on, set up the polls, and then have it ready to go for the next meeting. So all of those settings that are only available through the web browser when you sign into your account, those things have to be set up beforehand. True or false? Other people can take control of your computer when you are sharing your screen. This one's kind of a trick question. You may have heard in the news early on in the pandemic when Zoom was growing by leaps and bounds, there was actually a bug where people could take control when you were sharing in meetings, and that was not a good thing. Now, Zoom has actually made it as a feature that you can turn on and off. But there's the catch. Number one, you must have the setting turned on so that you can do remote control, and the participant must enable it. And of course, this is very useful if you're helping somebody with troubleshooting. So when you sign into your account via the web browser, right, it's the personal settings area. There is the remote control option there. And then the person that you want to take control of their computer, they have to go into the Zoom client, and then they check this box, enable the remote control of all applications. Again, this is very handy for troubleshooting or trying to, if somebody has all their settings mixed up, rather than telling them where to click and what to do, you can go in and do it yourself. But it has to be both the setting turned on and the person has to allow it. True or false? If you have a paid account, you can create a custom meeting ID and passcode for your meeting. This is a trick question. You can only create a custom passcode, not a custom meeting ID.
Doesn't that depend upon the type of account you have? My understanding is that the standard paid account will let you pick a custom ID, but the more expensive advanced accounts would.
We should double check that. I don't believe that's the case, but I could be wrong. What I do want to point out here, though, is when you are scheduling your meeting, that's where you can create the custom passcode. And so that's why when you, if you had to put in a passcode to join this meeting, it was IESB for Inland Empire Speakers Bureau 2021. That's where I set it up. When I was creating the meeting, I put in the passcode that I wanted there.
Are those case sensitive or not?
Yes, they are case sensitive. And for those of you who want a little more security when you're setting up your passcode, let's say you're using it for work, remember in the admin section under account settings, you can have requirements. For example, it has to be at least 8 characters long and have a letter and a number, blah, blah, blah. So that is an option that you can send if you need that extra security and other people are creating your meetings for you. True or false, Zoom polls are only available for paid accounts. this is false. And I wanted to throw this in here because a lot of clubs are not using the polls, and I'm not sure why. They are so easy and convenient, not only for, let's say, table topics voting or best speaker, but for example, we used ours to vote on our club officers. We used a poll to vote on whether we would meet over on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve because our meetings fall on Thursdays. There are just so many different uses for these polls. And so I just wanted to throw this in there to show this is what the poll looks like if you haven't seen one before. For example, you just put it up, who was your best speaker? You can fill in the names beforehand or during the meeting even. You launch it, people vote. And as the host, you can see the progress, how many people have voted and what percentage, who's getting what percentage of votes. You can share those results if you wanted to, or you can keep it anonymous. You can print out reporting on your polls. It's just a very convenient feature to know how to use. You just need to go into your settings and turn on the meeting polls feature. Okay, true or false? The person who owns the Zoom account must start the meeting. I think almost everyone said false. Let me ask the question another way. The person who owns the Zoom account has to be the first host of the meeting. True or false?
False.
False.
I believe that's false.
Yes, that is false. So one feature that very few people seem to know about is what's called claiming the host role. What that means is I can set up a code. Let's say that, and actually I did this with Tom's account because we're now on Zoom on Tom's account. Someone else had already started the meeting when I joined, but I wanted to make sure I was the host and Tom hadn't joined yet. So when I turned on this feature, if you go into the participant pane, there is now a button here that says claim host. I put in the 6-digit code that I set up on Tom's account, and now I'm the host. So if, let's say, Tom couldn't join this meeting, or you're using your personal account for any of your Toastmaster club meetings, you don't have to give people your password and have them sign in. You can set up this feature, claim host, give them the 6-digit code, and then they can just start the meeting using their own Zoom account, type in the code, and now they're the host. Zoom has a lot of great instructions on this. If you just Google Zoom claim host, you'll find the instructions, and it's very easy to do. It's very easy to change that code also. So you can change it week to week if you needed to.
So Suni, what was the answer to the first version of the question? Does the host have to start the meeting?
False.
Or does the owner? It's false?
Yeah. You can set up you can go into settings and say people can join before the host. I think that's the wording is something like that.
I think that's an important misnomer. There are many people who believe that the owner of the account has to be there for a meeting to take place. And that's not
right.
the case.
And it is not the case. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and so let me just say that again, since, sorry, I mixed up the question. Number one, the owner of the account does not have to start the meeting. You can set it up so that anyone who joins can start the meeting. Also, you can set it up so that anyone who has the code can declare themselves the host of the meeting. So if you can't attend at all, give them the 6-digit code and they can start it themselves. They can be the host. And here, this is in the browser. Under the personal settings, that's where you're going to set the host key. True or false? Oh, there's the answer. If the host leaves the meeting will end. Now, what most people are doing is they are turning on the co-host option and setting up a co-host. That's the safest, most secure way to do it. If you get kicked off Zoom, for example, if you've established the co-host, then that person knows that they're taking over and everything continues on and goes smoothly. But what if you get kicked off and you have not set up a co-host, what happens? Well, what happens depends on what version of Zoom you're using. If you're using the latest version, what's going to happen is, and this is from the developers forum, Zoom will just assign any other person in the meeting room to be the host and they take over. If you get signed back in and you want to take back over as host, then that person has to give you the role. And so it's not as elegant as if you appoint the co-host yourself, but that's how it works today if you're using the latest version of Zoom. Now, what's interesting here is in the future, what they're planning to do, and they don't give you a date of when they'll do it, is if the host gets kicked off, they're going to just move everyone into a waiting room and you'll be waiting until the host comes back on. Okay. All right, any questions?
False?
Yep, I think it's false. Okay, thank you very much.
Then you have a higher probability of choking on food.
I'm sorry, did somebody say they had a question? No? Okay. All right, our next speaker then is Kevin Maevers. And Kevin says there are opportunities for learning even during the most adverse of times. And the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent economic shutdown has forced all of us to become masters of audiovisual media. So tonight, Kevin, who is the host of the Undaunted Leadership channel on YouTube and president of KL Maevers and Company, is going to review the result of his research into creating a home studio and how to create the ultimate home office environment that will allow anyone to look like a professional on Zoom. Please help me welcome Kevin.
Thank you very much, Suni, and thank you, fellow Toastmasters, for inviting me back. This is the second month in a row that I've had the opportunity to present to all of you, and this presentation is going to be about as far removed from last month's presentation as it can possibly get. Last month we had a good time, we had a lot of fun. This time we're back in class and we're learning. So just to give you a little bit of background on what I do and how I do it, I've been working from home now for most of the past 5 years. So even before the pandemic, even before a lot of the things that have happened in this past year, I was already a pretty heavy power user of audiovisual technology. Like a lot of people, I started off with Skype and then GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar and Google Meet and all the other things. But of course, middle of last year, Zoom started picking up. And then when the pandemic hit at the beginning of 2020, it seemed like there was a flood onto Zoom. And I attended a lot of meetings, honestly, that were just plain awful. Really, really bad. And it wasn't necessarily because the presenters didn't know what they were doing. It's just they hadn't maximized the technology. They weren't using it to its fullest extent. So I'm going to run down for all of you the things that you need to do in order to maximize the technology that Suni just explained in great detail. Okay, all of that is wonderful unless you haven't set things up properly. So I'm going to go through the things that you need to do to set up your computer, to set up your home office, to set everything up so that you look like a professional on Zoom. All right. Y'all will have to forgive the shameless self-promotion. Yes, I do this for a living. So and I also have my own YouTube channel. So if you would like to see it, I do have full YouTube videos as well on a lot of different subjects, including how to look like a professional on Zoom. So there are 4 things that you need to do if you want to look like a professional on Zoom. And looking your best requires the following. Number one, the most important thing is a solid high-speed internet connection. And I'll tell you in a few minutes how you go about finding and ensuring that you have that solid high-speed internet connection. You need good quality technology, both hardware and software. Now, Suni explained that there are updates and there are different versions of Zoom. There are different versions of all these different programs that you can use. You want to make sure that you have the latest and best, and it's been updated recently so that you can access all the features. Number three, and a lot of people don't think about this, but having a distraction-free workspace where you can control the environment. This is where you have the ability to kind of lock out the rest of the world and focus on the task at hand, what you have in front of you. And then last but not least, and this is something that I really believe in, it's not necessary, but it certainly helps. And that's creating a space within your home office for innovation and creativity. And I'll touch on that in just a few minutes. So let's talk about that solid high-speed internet connection and what you need to do. Like all of us, you probably have multiple different ISPs, different internet service providers out there. I think here at my home in La Quinta, I have a choice of either 3 or 4 different ISPs. All but one are absolute garbage, just to be honest with you. They are really, really bad. You want to find the one that has the best ratings for speed, consistency, reliability, and most of all, customer service. Because if there's a problem in the delivery of the speed that you want to be able to get a hold of someone and get it resolved quickly. Okay. If it's available in your area, purchase a package that provides a minimum of 100 megabytes per second upload and download. Now, this is really important because a lot of services out there, especially if they rely on good old-fashioned cable to deliver the internet to you, they want you to be watching and streaming and taking all of that information in, so their throughput is maximized for you to receive information. In other words, the download speed is maximized. But when you're using a service like Zoom or GoToWebinar or Google Meetup or any of the others, you need to have two-way communication. You have to have the ability to go both up and down. Okay? So you want to maximize that. Here's something that hit me upside the head about 2 years ago. Verify that the wiring in your home office can handle high-speed transmission of data. You may need to upgrade to Cat 5 or Cat 6. If you have an older home, you may still be transmitting data through the old 2-wire or 4-wire telephone cables that are in there. They can't handle data transmission over about 30 or 40 megabytes per second, maybe even less if you've got some deterioration in your lines. So you may need to upgrade. I had to do that here in my home, and my home was only built in 2004 or 2005. But it did not have appropriate cable. So I had to go from the junction box over here to my home office, then into my router in order to make sure that I could maximize my speed. And then following installation, you want to, while the technician is still here, you want to verify that the level of service purchased is actually being delivered. And you want to go to a website, something like speedtest.net, okay, and run it on your computer while the technician is here, because you want to verify the service level that's being provided. Okay, this is an actual speed test result from my computer. The last time the technician was here, I bought a package that was supposed to give me 150 megabytes upload and download speed. Now, again, depending on the time of day, depending on the number of people that are using, depending on the type of whether it's hot or cold, surprisingly, as those of us that live in the desert, we are, you would be surprised how much deterioration there is of the signal when it gets to be 100, 110, 115 degrees. Okay, it's just the way it is. So give it plus or minus 10% to still kind of be within the range. But you can see here my download speed, because I actually took this in the middle of the afternoon. The kids are home from school. Everybody's streaming video. Everybody's online doing work. You can see my download speed is slightly lower than 150 megabytes per second, but still well within the range. But look at my upload speed. I'm a good 10% over what was promised. And that's why I never, or let's put it this way, rarely have a problem in two-way communication, because the signal is coming to me just as fast as it's going back out to you. And that's so you're looking at things in real time. Now, the other reason for making sure you do this while the technician is here is because they may have given you a router that has been refurbished. They may be handing you old technology. You'll be paying for 100, 200, 300 megabytes per second, but they'll give you a router that can only handle 50 megabytes per second. And they'll say, well, you know how it is. The signal degrades. No, it doesn't. Not to that extent. Okay? They'll tell you that. The truth is, a good quality router can handle every bit of throughput. And if you've got a computer that can handle that throughput as well, okay, you should be receiving what they're promising. No excuses, and don't let them make any. Demand the level of service that you are requesting and paying for. Okay. All right. So we've set up our, we know we're getting the right audio and video. We know we've got good throughput. What do you need from there? Now we need good quality technology. That is the hardware and the software that can maximize. So sometimes I get my students and other people ask me, well, do you prefer a computer, a desktop, or a laptop? Well, yes, I do. It doesn't matter to me. I actually have a really good laptop because occasionally I am traveling, but 90% of the time it sits over here off to the right side of my desk, acting like a desktop. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, desktop or laptop, either way is great, just so long as you've got a good internal processor. In other words, one that will maximize the signals. I recommend Intel processors. I know there are some people that believe in AMD and some of the other things. I do know they're coming out with some good processors now. Personally, though, I've had some problems with AMD processors in the past. Intel has never let me down. Okay? Your video card. This is something we don't think about. For those of us who are used to using productivity software, in other words, we do email and we do maybe an occasional PowerPoint, and we do some work on Microsoft Office and other things. Well, a video card was never a big deal. Well, now we're doing video, so a video card is a big deal. So you want to make sure that you've got a good video card with a processor speed that matches the processor speed of your internal computer. Data storage and access for something like what we're doing right now. High-speed data storage and high-speed access. If you have the ability to use a solid-state processor, in other words, an SSP or a solid-state card, use it. The old-fashioned, spinny wheel kind of data collection system, you don't want that anymore. It's the access time is too slow in order for you to do a good presentation. Okay. High-resolution webcam, I recommend anything by Logitech. Personally, I've had nothing but good results with Logitech. I'm using my Logitech camera right now, and you'll see that in just a minute. A high quality microphone as well in order to maximize your audio signal. I know we've all sat in the meetings where people sound like, okay, and we all shake our heads and go, huh? What happened there? That's because the microphone is not being used properly. Okay. All right. I've got it. Okay. Mr. Alexander, Dr. Alexander, did you have a question? I see your hand up there, but your microphone is off.
Yeah, the problem that I'm having is it doesn't seem to matter what microphone I use. I still get garbled and echoes.
We'll touch on that in just a minute. That probably has to do with wherever you're broadcasting from. Okay. So I'll go into that. Hang on to just a minute. We'll talk about how to set up your home office as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The microphone itself, though, I do not recommend using the embedded microphone or the integrated microphone either in your laptop or the integrated microphone in your webcam. Get a separate microphone. If you're a heavy user of Zoom or any of the other audiovisual media, get a good quality microphone. Barring that, okay, Dr. Alexander, maybe you want to think about, instead of using a microphone, a headphone or headset as well with a boom mic on it is another way to get past that potential problem with echoing. Sometimes you just have to put the headset on and go with the headset in order to drown out any echoes or anything else that may be resulting from your office. Last but not least, lighting system. This is something that a lot of people don't think about. They don't have proper lighting in their home office, and lighting is everything. Now, when I first started using Zoom and some of the other audiovisual channels, all I had was my overhead can lights in my office, and it always looked like I was speaking in shadow. Worse than that, I have a west-facing window here in my home office, and in the afternoon with the sun shining right through my window, I would get completely washed out. Okay. I don't want that. I want people able to see me. I want them to be able to see my pretty blue eyes. I want them to be able to see my smiling face. After all, it takes a lot for this to look good. Okay. I want to make sure it looks as good as possible. So part of that is lighting. So if I've done everything correctly, and you've done everything correctly, what you should be seeing is a nice, clear signal. You should be seeing my blue eyes. You should be seeing my nice shirt. You should be seeing my home office, and everything should be crisp and clear. If I decide to use a background, okay, because I've got good technology, good processor speed. Now, I know you've all seen it. Some people, they get that halo effect around them, or they move from side to side and maybe the background will be fuzzy, or worse than that, because of the processor speed maybe they have, you can't see their background at all. They get completely washed out. But if you do it properly, you shouldn't have that problem. And I prepare, one of the things I love about Zoom is the fact that these backgrounds are so easy to make and so easy to integrate. And it allows me to create a different background for my different clients, for different purposes, for the different things that I'm doing, even for Toastmasters. I put together a background for us at Toastmasters. You can see there, I even advertised the club, my home club, Desert Toasters. So you can have that behind you for any of our Toastmasters meetings. Okay, so moving on, part 3 is a distraction-free workspace where you can control the environment. And controlling the environment is really, really important. You want to control the lighting, noise, outside distractions, ability to focus on task, okay? All of those good things. Let me back up. There we go. Ability to focus on tasks. But all of these things work together so that you can make an excellent presentation. So you can look right into the camera, right into the eyes of your audience, and you have everything all set up here in front of you. So you've seen what you're supposed to see. Now let's take a look at what you don't see if I've done everything right. This is a screenshot, or this is a picture of my home office, my complete setup. And I put this all together just for doing things like we're doing today. This is the exact setup I'm broadcasting from right now at this moment. So you can see my computer with the dual monitors. You can see that on the left side of the screen there is the presentation that I'm making. On the right side is all of my control. You can see my microphone, which is up above, but slightly off to the right, so it's out of my screenway. And everything is at my fingertips. While I'm up here from chest up and talking to all of you, and you can occasionally see my hands and things, what you don't see is my hands down below the screen going 100 miles an hour from the mouse to the keyboard, back and forth, and doing all kinds of other things. Now, here's a slightly different shot. In this one I put together because now you can see my lighting system. You can see what those are called loom panels. They are LED panels. They put off a huge amount of light, but it's also adjustable. So you can adjust the blues and the yellows, the tones. So you get that nice warm tone. If you're somebody like me who's got a little red in my skin, I want it to be a little warmer, a little nicer. But again, you can see my boom microphone. You can see the microphone up there, and you can see everything at my desk, including my coffee and my water, which I always keep close by. Again, a slightly different perspective. This from the other side. Again, showing the loom panels and showing how's everything set up. And then last but not least, just back straight on. Now, the reason I put this last picture in is because I want you to look beyond and look at how dark everything is around me. Okay? I want it that way. If you were in my office right now, you would actually see that with the exception of the loom panels, I've got my overhead lights turned down completely. That's because I don't want those shadows coming in from the overhead lights. I also have a ceiling fan that's going round and round. And if I had those overhead lights turned up, you'd see that shadow crossing my face, like it going round and round and round every few seconds and blocking out my face. I don't want that. So I've got my overhead lights turned very down. All my lighting is coming directly from the loom panels. Okay. I've turned around this time because I wanted to give you an idea of how much light those loom panels, these silly little panels that we have, these LED panels, put off a tremendous amount of light. So now you're looking over the top of one of my monitors back towards what is actually behind me that you don't see because I've got a background up here. This is another one straight on from over the top, back over where I sit, directly back to the wall behind my desk. Controlling the light. This is so important. Again, I let everybody know that I have a west-facing window, and all of our computers, all of our webcams, all of our cameras, they're all photosensitive. They're all light sensitive. So those things are going to pick up the greatest source of light that is available at the time. So what I did was I opened my windows. This was taken middle of the afternoon. Again, west-facing window. So with the light shining through, I've got this glorious, wonderful garden outside my window here, which is beautiful during the day. But when I'm working on Zoom and when I'm doing a webinar or anything else, I can't have that open because what happens is the camera adjusts for the light. And so consequently, everything is dark except the largest light source, which is that window. So what I had my lovely wife do was she made me some blackout shades. And I put these up. Now, this is the exact same location, the exact same thing. All I've done, the only thing I've done different, same time of day, is I pulled the shades. And now you can see that the entire room is lit up. And it's nice and neat and even. And now I can control the amount of light. I can control the camera angle, and I can control what you see from my webcam. Okay. Because controlling the environment, including audio and video, gives the ability to be both creative and to maximize the technology. And that's what you want. We're paying a lot for the privilege of doing all of this. And I pay a lot to do good work. I want to make sure I maximize the technology. Something you might have thought about, complementary professional colors in the foreground and background. You can see in most of those pictures, I'm wearing a blue shirt. As I started doing this, my mother actually looked at one of my YouTube videos and she calls me up and she goes, "Honey, I love your videos. I love what you're doing, but don't ever wear a white shirt again. You just don't look good in white. Wear blue. It shows off your eyes." Okay, Mom, no problem. So now 90% of the time you're going to see me wearing blue because I do still listen to my mother. Okay. Have the tools of your trade nearby. Okay. Use curtains and other fabrics to control light and sound. Now, Dr. Alexander, you asked about that, some of that echoing. What you'll find is that occasionally if you put up soft fabrics in the area, you will reduce some of that echo. So if you don't have some good heavy shades or other curtains in your home office, you might try putting some up, or you may have to go to a boom mic if you still continue to have that problem. Okay. Last but not least, creating that inspirational environment. I'm a big believer in inspiration, and I take it wherever I can get it. Okay. Your home office should be a reflection of who you are and the things that you do. You are the CEO of your micro business, your company, your firm, your organization. And hopefully, if you're using audio and video and you're wanting to be a public speaker, after all, that's why we're all here. Okay. You're an innovator, a creator, hopefully a visionary as well. And you'll want to inspire yourself. You want that environment. So to create that inspirational environment, again, this is just a shot of the things behind my desk. I'm surrounded by my books. I'm surrounded by my statues, some of the tokens of my career you'll find in here. Again, my American flag, a couple of plants and other things that I have. You look the opposite direction, you'll see I have a TV as well, some other things up on my walls, mini statues of some of the great leaders here in the United States. And of course, my barrister bookshelves with all of my books and the tools of the trade close by. So I walk into my office, my home office every day, just happy to be here. And considering I spend a lot of time here, that's a good thing. Okay. So finally, in summary, to look like a professional on Zoom, you need 4 things. Number 1, a solid high-speed internet connection. Number 2, the good quality technology, the hardware and software. Number 3, that distraction-free workspace where you can control the environment. And number 4, create a space for innovation and creativity. Toastmasters, that's how you create and how you look like a professional on Zoom.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And I believe you're going to take questions now. Is that correct?
I can take questions if there are any. I don't know if I'll have the answer. I just the technology, of course, is changing. As you pointed out, Sunny, earlier, it is changing all the time. I know what works right now today. Who knows what'll work tomorrow?
So Marcia Rowe has had her hand up.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I have a question. You talked about the loom panels for lighting. I noticed a lot of people use ring lights. Is there a difference, or would you say that they're pretty much equivalent?
The answer to that question is it depends, kind of like a lot of other things. I actually have some of the ring lights as well. My wife uses a ring light in her office for all the things that she does. I happen to prefer the loom panels because they're rechargeable and they're very portable. I can take them with me. They're much easier to put a couple of loom panels and the stands that I have into a bag if I'm going somewhere. And if I'm traveling, I can set them up on my desk. Much easier to carry around than a big ring light. So I prefer the loom panels.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead and speak up if you have a question.
Yeah, I want to ask you about virtual backgrounds. I know a lot of people who love to use virtual backgrounds, and you get halos, you have objects disappear. So I'm generally pretty negative about virtual backgrounds. I really am in front of the White House. But I'm wondering if you have any advice for those people who cannot be talked out of a virtual background.
Okay, the biggest problem that most people have with virtual backgrounds is the processing speed of their computer and whether or not they have an adequate video card. The video processing it requires to do a virtual background is pretty significant. So honestly, for some of my people, what I let them know is if you're going to be buying a new computer, this is where our kids and grandkids in many cases have it all over us. All those kids that have been playing video games for years and years and years, all right, they have the best technology for doing exactly what we're doing right now. They have the computers that maximize the audio and video signals. Now, there are a couple of other tricks that you can use as well. If you're kind of have marginal backgrounds, there are portable green screens out there. See, a lot of times what you'll find is that the green screen itself will help get rid of a lot of those halos. And there are portable ones that you can get for like $50 that you can put behind your desk that will do it. But like for me, I noticed I was getting some of those halos. I'm going to turn my background off real quick here so that you can see what I do real quick. I do not have a green screen. I do have good processor speed and everything else. But what you see behind me is I have a towel, just a white towel draped over all of my books and my bookshelf. Now, what that does is it gives the computer a consistent color background behind me so that when I move my head, and move other things, it doesn't, you don't get that fade through, that bleed through you do from the background. So that's another thing you can possibly do, is just put something, a consistent color, anything light will do that. And then you end up with a much better look on Zoom than if you have a multicolored background like I do, you'll end up with those halos and shadows at times.
Yeah, I actually, I cheated. I wasn't willing to spend the $50 for a real green screen. So I went down to the local art supply store
There you go.
and spent $4 on green construction paper. And most of my friends say, my God, you're a spendthrift. I went to the dollar store and just got a shower curtain.
And all of that works. You've discovered the big secret. All right. It's about having a consistent color background behind you. Light green, light blue, even white or beige works just fine. But yeah, big poster board or construction paper or a sheet, towels, all of it works. All of it works. Anybody else?
Kevin, part of it's interesting that you're talking about the green screens and, from this perspective, because all green screens are not equal. And if you're, like you said, traveling, at some point, I guess, we'll be traveling, those of us who like to travel, the portable green screen, you cannot cheap out on it. It's just not worth it. And in fact, even the green screen that I use at home I don't use the portable one. I have one set up, but I didn't cheap out on that. So it just depends really on what works for you and your situation. And the same thing goes with cameras, because like the Brio camera is from Logitech is wonderful, but I've seen cameras that are $50 that are just as good or almost as good. So it just depends on who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, and what satisfies your need. So the scale can go anywhere from $50 to $250 for a camera, as you well know. And I played around. The first camera I got was a wide angle, and I have a pretty big home office, but it was too wide for the green screen, and the green screen was big itself. So I had to go down to a 90-degree angle camera for it to work. So I think a lot of that has to do with what's going on in your space, like you said, creating the space that you want.
And you're absolutely correct. I couldn't agree more. Because I do this professionally, because I have a YouTube channel, and because I do a lot of teaching, as well as making presentations with Toastmasters and others, I have spent the extra money on a little bit better stuff. But there are still some ways to cut corners, and I will be upgrading as well. I expect once COVID-19 is over, I expect to be doing a whole lot more traveling. And yes, I will be buying a nice portable green screen as well. That'll maximize my signal even when I'm in a hotel room, hopefully. So, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Suni. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity again.
Thank you, Kevin. I learned a lot, and I thought I knew a lot. So really appreciate that. All right, our next speaker, I have to say, is probably one of the hardest working sergeant at arms. I'm not even sure, was that your role? I'm in Club 231F in Orange County with Zip, and when we were doing the hybrid meetings, he was there early and running around setting. I mean, I bow to the work that you put into making that work, and I'm so excited that you're here, able to talk about hybrid meetings. So Zip has worked in high-tech communications for over 20 years. Perhaps the only good thing to come from COVID-19 is that his wife, Robin, now understands the power and promise of video conferencing, a full 5 years after he stopped working for video conferencing companies. This evening, Zip is going to describe the system and process he and his team have developed to offer members and guests a truly hybrid meeting during COVID. And if you have questions, I'll put his email in the chat. He'll also take questions at the end. Welcome, Zip.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I want to make sure you guys have good audio, have good video, as good as I can make it, and are seeing my slide presentation. So give me some thumbs up if that's the case. Excellent. Shout out to Kevin. Great presentation, Kevin. Having spent 30 years, I added it up while you were giving your presentation. Having spent 30 years working out of my home office, back in the days when I had ISDN from Pac Bell, doing video conferencing and telepresence, the wall behind me is part of $1 million telepresence suite that was dismantled about 10 years ago, and I grabbed the blue glass and the LED behind it. That was great advice. I will just make one quick comment on the webcam. Logitech's the way to go. And the Logitech cameras that are about $100 were out of stock completely as soon as COVID hit. I had luckily just purchased a brand new one. Randy, the Logitech camera, if you're on a Windows machine, I just moved back to Mac after a few years on the dark side. Software for the Logitech camera on the Windows machine allows you to adjust the zoom and do a couple of other tricks as well inside of the camera. So it's well worth the price bump, especially if you're trying to narrow that field of view. So it will do a really nice job. That's not what I'm going to talk about today.
I got that on my do list to grab that one as well.
I'm going to talk about how we took our club hybrid, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why we took our club hybrid. I will definitely talk about the technology that we experimented with, where we landed, and talk about our challenges. I'll also talk about our successes. And we'll be following this up with an article that Christy Matolo is helping us to write. She's head of PR for our club. We're going to put together an article along with a shopping list. And it's a work in progress. As Kevin said, things are always changing and there's always opportunity to upgrade and whatever. So I'm happy to help any of the clubs that would like some help with the technology that we have put together that seem to work reasonably well, with the caveat that I don't work for any of those companies, and your mileage is going to vary. So let's go ahead and start talking a little bit about things. I told you a little bit about who I am, and I made the mistake of changing my computer layout right before this meeting. So I'm not in PowerPoint presentation mode, but hopefully you'll be able to see the slide flips. 30 years in video conferencing and streaming. I now work for a software development company called Southworks.com. Kevin, that's my shameless plug for myself. We're a software development company that works in the Microsoft and the AWS space, and we specialize in media. So if you've watched the Discovery Network, we've done their back-end streaming system. So we do stuff like that. It's pretty high tech and it's pretty cool. I'm a husband, a dad, I own a boat, and I lift a mountain bike. I joined Toastmasters about a year ago because I'd like to do a TED Talk in 2 years. I don't know what that TED Talk's going to be about yet, but I want to use Toastmasters to refine those skills so that when I do find a topic, I'll have the skill set to deliver a great TED Talk. I love to tinker with tech, which is really a huge reason why I took on this Sergeant-in-Arms, webmaster, hybrid master, video Zoom master role for our club. I wouldn't say I've had a good time. It's been an awful lot of effort, way more effort than I thought it was going to be. And to be honest, I'm not sure if I would do it again, but the learnings that we have now, we can move forward from, right? And the reason I'm not sure I would do it again is just it has been a massive, massive time suck trying to get it right. So let's talk about some of the things that Zoom has sort of done for us here. Of course, it's the ultimate social distancing tool, relatively easy to use, compatible, inexpensive, ubiquitous. We already know that. And I think most clubs are using Zoom. We could be using Teams or we could be using WebEx or anything else, but Zoom made itself free for a long time. But as we've all found, you really have to buy a package of Zoom to make it really usable and standardized and everything else. And so we're all buying Zoom right now. I actually bought Zoom stock in February. I sold it a little bit earlier than I should have, but Zoom's had a great ride and it's a great software and it's great technology. But despite how great it is, I think all of us, and I've spent literally the last 30 years working out of a home office. I've had a camera on top of my whatever machine for the last 30 some odd years. This is a very tiring way to meet every single day. It's a very tiring way to have a 2-hour meeting. It's a very, very difficult, very distracting environment for people. And it's tough on Toastmasters. It's a very different experience doing Toastmasters on Zoom versus doing Toastmasters in person. I think it's been a great experiment, and I hope to see, even after we remove the pandemic limitations, I hope to see keeping Zoom and remote presentations in the Toastmasters toolkit, because this technology is never going away. Now that you all have gotten a taste of the life Kevin and I have led for years, there's going to be less business travel. There's going to be more of this type of technology. And it is a totally different way of presenting than if you're presenting at home, presenting in front of people. So this is a skill set that I think needs to get added as a very specific skill set inside of Toastmasters, presenting and public speaking over Zoom. One of the other big problems here is multitasking. How many of you, be honest with me, how many of you are checking the news because it's been a crazy day, or are checking your email or looking down at your text, or we're eating? I had to eat as the meeting started. You don't multitask in a Zoom meeting. Nobody does. I mean, I'm sorry, in person, nobody does. But we multitask in these meetings. We just always do. This is just the way of it. You know, Kevin talked about his hands at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I was probably going 2,000,000 miles an hour because I wasn't presenting, right? So what we found as a club was that we were getting fatigued with Zoom, and this is around the July timeframe. So we thought the worst of it was behind us. Orange County had opened up a little bit, and we had a really terrific club member, Christy Matolo, and her husband, Robert. They own a gym in Corona del Mar, California, a little strip of Newport Beach. And it's a beautiful gym. And they offered up their facility for our Toastmaster meetings, because the place we had been meeting, we couldn't meet there anymore. That place was hard shut down. I don't know if we're ever going to get back there. It was a lovely room, but I don't know if we're ever going to get back there. But Christy and Robert said, hey, we've got a health club. We've invested very heavily in air filtration and in sanitization and the latest technology. And we've got this huge room so we can have social distancing necessary to put people 6 feet apart. Why don't we try to hold hybrid meetings and just run it Zoom out of the, it's an aerobic studio, actually. It's a really bright, terrific lighting, to Kevin's point, terrific lighting. It had a built-in PA system. It had built-in mics in the ceiling. It actually had a bunch of other technology. So they offered us a really great, enticing space. It's been part of the time suck, because in order to make sure this works, we have to drive down to the space, get into the space, and it's not a constant space. I mean, the space is always there, but it's not our space. We have to set up, and then we have to break down very quickly. Setup is as long as it takes us. We could get there at 5 o'clock in the morning if we want to. We meet at 7 in the morning on Mondays. I could get there and have at 5 o'clock in the morning to set everything up. But we have about 10 minutes to break everything down. And then we're gone for a week, and then it starts all over again. So we decided to go hybrid. Christy and Robert gave us a fantastic opportunity, a fantastic physical venue, and a lot of support to do it there. And I thought it would be an interesting technology challenge, which in fact it has been. So I took it on. As I said, the room is big, it's bright, it has a monitor, it has stuff in the ceiling. We thought, hey, this is going to be terrific. Well, I love this quote. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So I said, oh, Christy, we'll come down. We'll spend about 30 minutes figuring it out. You've got mics in the ceiling. You've got a PA system. You've got webcams in the ceiling. All I have to do is plug my Mac or my PC in. I'll fire it up. We'll be on that big monitor for Zoom. It would be fantastic, right? We'll use the club's laptop. Take me 30 minutes, then we'll go get a beer. 3 hours later, we had one of the 3 webcams working, one of the ceiling mics working. I had hunted down the manual for the PA system that was in the ceiling and that was driving the mics, but we couldn't figure out how to get. It was a horror show. I mean, it was 3 hours of wasted time. And what we decided, we were going to scrap all the in-room technology except for the monitor that was on the wall. We could use the monitor as HDMI. It's a single physical cable. I literally unplugged all their cables and plugged my cable in. There's my laptop. So at least the monitor in the wall worked. We decided to try to use the club's PC. We lost the club's PC. When COVID hit, our sergeant at arms moved, took the club's PC with him. We've never been able to get it back. So we literally don't have a PC. So I threw my laptop together. It's a Mac here. I threw my Mac in there. We tried a couple of experiments. We did have a couple of camcorders. We tried to use those. They're not designed for web streaming. Cables would fall out. We didn't have the right adapters. Our biggest problem though was audio. So we could bake the video portion of Zoom. As you can see here, this is a real picture of I think this is our very first time, but nobody could hear Lori. Why? Well, she's in a giant room and we're using a little tiny microphone, right? So we tried using the lapel microphones that the club had. We didn't get anything consistently coming out of those microphones. So the first investment we made was in a wireless PA system. Couple $100 on Amazon. We tried 2 different ones. We found this one to be quite good. It's got 2 handhelds, 2 lapels. It's a pretty solid system. It had really, really good reviews. We've had really, really good results with it. Does mean that you have to pick up a microphone, but by the way, when you're in a hybrid meeting and you're actually sitting or standing and presenting in that room, I mean, this feels like Toastmasters, right? Hi, everybody. I'm glad all 2,000 of you are here, and I'm going to give you a great presentation, right? I mean, so this really gives you the Toastmaster experience. So come to one of our hybrids when we start doing them again, and you'll either be the blue or the orange mic. Okay, so our first problem was audio, and I will just make a point to what Kevin was talking to you about, like setting all your stuff up and all of your gear and everything else. You can use Zoom to test Zoom. And that's hugely important, right? You could put all the best technology in the world and dial it all in and have it do a terrible job because you never bother to see what it looks like on the other end. So part of our testing was putting a couple of Zoom clients together in with the presenter side of the equation and actually going back and forth and seeing what worked. How's that audio? That audio is too hot. That audio is too low. You know, it doesn't sound good when he has a lapel microphone. That camera's not in a good position, et cetera, et cetera. So part of this was trial and error, a lot of trial and error, because none of this stuff goes quickly. Like you go reset everything up, reconfigure things, go back to the manual, figure out where the auto gain control is and turn it off. Silly stuff, right? So these are just some of the things. I'm not going to read the slide to you, but these are some of the things that we sort of dealt with in our learning curve. And I think the most important one was just the audio. You know, I can do something silly like mute my video right now and still give you a great presentation. Well, I hope it's a great presentation. You guys would be the judge. But if I muted my audio, or I had crappy audio, or it was echoey audio, or it was scratchy audio, it would be worthless. You would just tune me out immediately. And right, that's the most important thing about this is the audio has to be spectacular. One of the problems that we had in a hybrid environment is you're in this big room. We've got the microphone. We figured out the microphone part. But the problem is the people in the room have to be able to hear the Zoom people. So this is for you to hear me in the room. But when a Zoom presenter, because we wanted it to be equal, we wanted the Zoom presenter to have the same experience and the same opportunity as the in-person, because we didn't want to force people to come in person that didn't feel like they wanted to be in a physical room, socially distant, wearing masks. We followed all the guidelines. But we had first responders. We have first responders in our club. We have people that have underlying conditions. We have people that just don't want to be around other people right now. And so we wanted to make sure that we gave you on Zoom the same experience or as close to the same experience as you in the room. So this does a great job of my mic, my voice into the Zoom call. We had to figure out how to get the audio of the Zoom call into the room. So we fooled around, and what we came up with is $100 Costco. I don't think they sell them anymore. It was a Christmas special. These little wireless speakers are spectacular. We got 2 of them. We turn them on. We pair them to the in-room Mac. I'm using a Mac, but you could use PC. We pair them to the in-room Mac, and these are the speaker for the system. Now, it was really important that we used the microphone and the speaker from the same Mac client, the same Zoom client. And I'll explain that in a second. We actually have 2 Zoom clients in our hybrid room. One Zoom client is for the presenter. We have another Zoom client, a PC running the Zoom client with its own camera. That is for the audience, for the in-person local audience. So when you're on one of our Zoom calls, there are 2 participants from the hybrid room. The presenter, which is always the camera with a close-up of the presenter speaking, and then you can see the room. It's really important because sometimes the microphone goes to somebody in the audience locally to ask a question or participate in local discussion that takes place during Toastmasters or table topics or whatnot. You can't have a stilted, like, okay, table topics. You have to go up and get in front of the room and set yourself up as a presenter, and then you speak for 2 minutes. That doesn't work in the flow of the meeting. So we came up with speakers in the room. Video, okay, the local presenter, the people in the room get to watch the big monitor. But when you're presenting not just to the local audience, but to the Zoom audience. And usually the Zoom audience is much larger. So we had to come up with what's called a confidence monitor. And the confidence monitor, just like a prompter, if you're a presenter and you're doing a big presentation on television or something, you have a prompter, a teleprompter to look at. We put a confidence monitor in front of this camera so that the presenter can have eye contact with the Zoom audience. And of course, the presenter can look around the room and have eye contact with the local audience. So we had to bridge that gap, right? And then presentations, it's easy for me on Zoom to present. We had to come up with a way that was as easy for somebody who is giving a presentation from the actual physical room to present. So they give us a USB stick, we stick it in, and we run the presentation off of the computer that's tied into the Zoom call from the presenter. So just something to think about. Setup takes us about 45 minutes. In person, for regular in-person Toastmasters, you come in with your sign-up sheet, you throw a couple of voting things on people's desks, or you just put a stack and you start your meeting. So there's a huge difference in the setup. We've gotten it down to about 30 minutes, but initially it was an hour and a half. And the way we got it down to about 30 minutes is, I'll show you in a second, we built a kit. And we built a kit so that we can reproduce this. So we've gotten it to the point where it's reproducible. We had to be able to pack up in about 10 minutes. So we do have it to about 10-minute pack up now. And the pack up is such a way that the kit is ready to go for the next setup. And the kit's mobile, so the kit's on wheels. The kit's in a Pelican case. So the kit's on wheels. We can take the kit anywhere in the world if we want to. Now it's check-in luggage. It's not over the seat luggage. You have to actually check the thing, but it is checkable. So theoretically, we could take this thing completely on the road. I can throw it in the back of my SUV and I can take it anywhere because we know we're going to be in different venues, right? Okay. So here's what our hybrid environment looks like. This is an actual hybrid meeting that we had. We did a lot of trial and error. You can see Shiva, she's one of the very active members in our club, and she's up on the big monitor. She's actually giving a presentation, so we're all participating in that presentation. We had some challenges with the whole room is mirrored, and it creates that tunnel where you're in a mirror and you're so we brought in those are shower curtains, Kevin. We brought, or doctor, we put in shower curtains to sort of block the mirror. We've evolved this a little bit more. We now have like a nice looking set. It almost looks like a talk show set, right? And we've got chairs if you want to sit while you're presenting or make it more intimate or whatever. So we've done some more work on the physicality. You can see there's the fold up table and the kit there, and I'll give you some close up views. So I talked a little bit about the audio. You can see the audio mixer. That's the thing with all the buttons and all the wires coming out of it. That's an audio mixer. That's the PA. Oh, that's a mixer. It's tied into the audio PA. So we have a mixer and audio PA. So I can turn the gain up on any of those 4 microphones. So if somebody's speaking particularly soft or somebody is just screaming, we can turn that up and turn that down. We've got local headset. So it looks like a TV production. And that's one of the real challenges is it's kind of a TV production. And it kind of has to be, because otherwise you'll have a terrible experience as a Zoom participant, and you'll have a terrible experience as as a hybrid in-room participant. So there is a huge human labor aspect to it. During one of these meetings, someone, right now it's me, is acting as the producer. So if I've got somebody who's in the physical room giving a presentation, I'm changing the Zoom view. I'm pinning that person's video, or I'm spotlighting that person's video, so that that person's spotlighted so you all see that person. I'm then using some pretty interesting cameras. We tried a couple of things. We tried simple webcams, the Logitech thing. We could zoom it in and out a little bit. That was okay. But we really couldn't catch a standing speaker, especially a standing speaker that wanted to use physicality, which is a Toastmasters, item. So we did a little bit of research and we found these cameras. They're made by a company called Mevo. This is the Mevo Start camera. I'll give you more information about that later. But the Mevo Start camera is pretty interesting. It's not foolproof. This one crashed on me when I was trying to set it up so I could use it for this presentation. I had to update its software. I hadn't used it for a while. But it requires a tablet, so it's a fairly heavy mix. This is about a $200 tablet and about a $400 Mevo camera. But it allows us to pinch and zoom and set up different settings so we can zoom in and zoom out. We can actually do a TV type production, very smooth zooms and pans and stuff from the tablet. We can set up presets, et cetera, et cetera. We ultimately will have 2 of these, and we'll be able to go between the audience and the presenter with different cue points and different zoom points and stuff. So we'll have a really nice looking presentation when we go back to the hybrid meetings in hopefully February, God willing. Yeah. Social distance. Oh, in room. So right now I'm the technical guy, the technical director. We did draft a Chapman student who's in the film school at Chapman, which is a great place to get good talent. He happens to be a personal family friend. His name is Sevon, and Sevon's helping with the production side of it. He's also helping with the tech, but he's mostly helping with the production because I'm not a creative guy. I'm a technical guy. I like to put the wires together and dial that stuff out, but I don't know, like, oh, cut to her, she's got an interesting look on her face, or zoom out because you've been zoomed in too long, or zoom in because we can't even see that person's face. That's not what I'm good at. I know when I see good TV, but I can't make good TV. So Sevon's come on as an apprentice, and Sevon is actually running side by side with me. Sevon's running the cameras. Sevon's adjusting the audio and the microphones. I'm just sort of making sure Zoom works properly, and I'm doing the spotlighting in Zoom, and I handle any technical nightmares that come up. We haven't had any recently. So this is what our room layout looks like. We've got the presenter up the front. We don't use a podium, but I guess we could with the wireless mics. We've got people separated by 3 feet of distance. We have wireless speakers in the audience, so the sound in the audience is really quite good. We've got a room cam, which is a PC with another camera to face the audience, and we've got the AV kit with the cameras that face the presenter. Here's what the kit looks like. It doesn't have a Toastmaster sticker on it, but I'll put one on it. That's a graphic. Huge cup of coffee is a necessity. And then here's what the case looks like inside. So what I did is I custom cut the foam once I had laid things out. You can see a bunch of, you can see here we've got a power strip with a bunch of things powered. You can see here in the case, it's got an orange extension cord. We set this up so that when the case is closed, if everything's in the case properly, so when you break the room down, you put everything where it's supposed to go, and it clearly goes where it's supposed to go, and you plug all of the charging cables into all the devices. You take the batteries out, you put the batteries for the microphone in the battery charger, and when you plug the case into the wall, the case charges everything. So if you plug the case in on Sunday night, everything in the case, including the batteries, Kevin, for the wireless microphones, and we have 2 sets of batteries, so we're redundant on the batteries. Everything is fully charged when you open the case in the morning and take it out to start the event. So all the wireless technology needs batteries. Everything's all fresh. And if you put it back properly, just plug it in the night before and everything's all ready to rock and roll. So we're really pleased with it. We have some remaining challenges. We've had some problems with the audio and the cameras and the Zoom software that is just going to take some time to iron out. It's just one of those things we're just going to have to figure out what the gazintas and the gazatas are, right? So that's something that is just going to take a lot of trial and error and a little bit more software maturity. We've been working with the Mevo, the camera producer. We've been working with Mevo. We reported a couple of bugs. I'm in product management, so I know how to do really good bug reporting. So they've got really, really good bugs, and they're working on one of the problems that we found. We want to drop one of the Zoom clients and do that 2-camera thing, because having 2 Zoom clients in the room is a little bit redundant, and it's a lot of extra technology, and it's kind of a pain in the neck. And we've had several instances of Zoom unmuting itself. It's not supposed to do that, but be careful, sometimes it does. And then we get an echo, we get a loop, and somebody has to get up and run over to that computer and remute it, right? We've really struggled with voting, and now Suni has tried to help us with this, and we're not there yet. Yes, Zoom has some polling. You can use SurveyMonkey. The problem that we have with voting is we want voting to be just like everything else. We want it to not matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're in Georgia. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter if you're in the Zoom audience or if you're physically in the room. We want you to be able to vote, and we want the voting experience to be the same, and we want to be able to tally the votes quickly and not have somebody spending half the meeting multitasking as the statistician or the polling manager for the entire thing. One of the things I think we have centered in on is Poll Anywhere, because Poll Anywhere will give us a QR code, and we did some training in our last session, and then we left hybrid because of the lockdown. You can aim your camera, and we trained everybody. You can aim your phone's camera at the QR code, and it will automatically pull up that voting ticket. So for best speaker, show the 3 best speakers, pick one, put in some comments, right? That kind of thing. So we still have a lot of work to do on the voting, but I think we can puzzle it out. The problem for us with voting was we were busy working on video and audio technology. We left voting for actually, we forgot it. and all the voting that takes place in a normal Toastmasters meeting, it's a heavy lift, because at least in our club, voting takes place through the entire session. Best table topic, spark plug, risk taker, best speaker, best evaluator, right? So there's voting all throughout the entire thing. So it is something that we're still trying to figure out. And then the dependency on me. If I'm sick or I'm out of town, if we start traveling again, God help us, I hope we do someday. If we start traveling again, nobody right now can do it but me. And we've got to sort of nail it down, document everything, and then train a few volunteers. And maybe if we can take a few pieces out of the mix where we can, like dropping that second Zoom client. That said, I think we've done a really, really good job on it as a team. And I've got to say the club itself has been terrific. They've put up with a lot of the trial and error, right? It's not great when you're on the audience and you can't hear, and you're saying, hey, I can't hear, and we can't hear you, so we don't know you can't hear us, and everybody's frustrated, and you got to tell your speaker to start all over again, and they're 3 minutes into their speech. So the club has been really respectful of this trial and error, and I think that that's been a really, really important part. We've got the right club for this. So that's it. I hope it was informative. I hope I didn't cover too much silly ground, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Zip. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Zip, I do have a quick question for you, because you've really taken Toastmasters to the next level with the hybrid approach. You're doing
We're on the road.
You're essentially doing a local TED Talk. You're trying to emulate that.
Yeah, but not the way I wanted to do. I want to be the talker.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But what I was going to ask you, are you going to be integrating since you have the and I wanted to give you kudos for the Chapman reference too. It's my alma mater.
All right.
So, the camera on the speaker. Now, one of the reasons I love what we're doing right now is because when I'm standing and giving a presentation, I tend to wander about the room, okay? Because I'm looking for eye contact and I'm looking for recognition. that would require a camera operator. Are you thinking about adding that?
Well, we do that, right? So the Mevo software has the ability for us to pan, tilt, and zoom electronically. Now, the camera head itself doesn't pan, and that was a problem for us because we had some speakers going way off cam. So we put in a remote pan head. So if somebody goes completely off the reservation and we don't want to call them back, I mean, we're informal, but if you're mid-speech, we really don't want, hey, Cindy, come back over here, we can't see you. We can adjust the pan. We initially bought this because we thought we would use this to pan to the audience and save the cost of another $400 camera. It's not fast enough. It's much too disruptive, and it just feels wrong. So the folks at Shape Up bought another Mevo, and we share, like, they can use the kit when we're not using it because we don't care, and we leave it there so I don't have to haul it back and forth. And we're using each other's cameras. And that's how we've done the 2-camera thing. Eventually, the Mevo guys will have software that allows you to do a 2-camera shot with a single tablet. And that we're really looking forward to that, because that will give us a really seamless way. And what happens is the camera acts as a webcam. So we actually have the camera plugged into Zoom. The camera itself will stream to the internet. If you didn't want to do Zoom and you just wanted to stream to Facebook Live or something else, you can do it directly from these cameras, which is another really interesting capability of the camera. One of the reasons we bought the camera is we know we're going to use it over the next couple of years, right? But what doesn't work, unfortunately, we can't make it work well enough that there is like a face tracking mode that's in the Mevo. So theoretically, if you're up in front of the and presenting, it's supposed to be able to track you and zoom in on you a little bit or whatever. We find it doesn't work very well. So it might be that it's such a big location and it's kind of echoey because it's got a hard floor, mirrors, and a weird ceiling. It might be that it's too echoey and the software doesn't really know where the person is. That might be the case, but we found we have to follow. It's not hard. You're just sort of pinching and zooming your way to zooms and stuff and following the person. But we do have a camera operator. That's the Chapman guy.
I'm really kind of curious how much you've got invested.
About $2,400 in the kit. Yeah, about $2,400 in the kit. So it's not inexpensive. But since we are probably looking at another 6 months of some form of hybrid meetings, and then the gear that's in the kit could be used for almost anything. So when we swear in our officers and we have a bigger event at an outside facility, we've got our own PA system, et cetera, et cetera. So it is we bought the equipment with an eye towards, can we use this equipment for other things other than just the core meeting? And the answer is yes.
Are you a real volunteer?
What do you mean by real?
You get paid?
Ouch. No, I don't get paid at all. In fact,
I didn't think so.
In fact, a lot of this gear I bought on my credit card, and then we wound up figuring out what we were going to keep. And there is some donated stuff in the kit too that I donated from my stable of technology I've upgraded out of that I don't need. I'm a volunteer.
It would be really good if we could get a listing, say in an email that we can mail out to.
Yeah, there's going to be an article, and we'll make sure that Suni gets access to it, that we write up, where we write the whole thing up, and we're going to put a final shopping list together along with like Amazon click-throughs and everything else that you'll need to just go sort of put it all together yourself.
And Kevin, maybe you could also, you recommended a couple of things, and it'd be good to have that sent out to all of our members.
Somebody was asking if you'd be willing to share your slides.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll send it to you. No problem
Great,
whatsoever.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And actually what I'll do, Suni, is I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do a final slide, and I'll put an equipment list in there so you don't have to wait for the article to come out. But I did make that caveat in the beginning of this that, your mileage is going to vary. Right. The audio stuff seems to be very stable now. The Mevo is still not completely stable. It hasn't failed us in any Toastmaster event, but it did fail this me today. I wasn't able to use it for this presentation, which is, well, I guess it did fail for Toastmasters event because it's Toastmasters.
Zip, what are you using for lighting? I must have not looked when you were showing those photos.
We didn't need any lighting in the hybrid room because the room is so well lit. It's an aerobics studio, and it's bright as the sun. The room's beautiful. The room, that's the only thing we didn't have to change in the room is the lighting.
So no shadows, it's all perfect.
No, it's real because the hardwood floor reflects upward and takes out the raccoon eyes and stuff. It's really, we lucked out there on the lighting. The lighting's spectacular.
Hey, Zip, you had mentioned the wireless speakers. Was that a specific wireless speaker that you have to use, or can you use any wireless speaker for that in-room audio?
I suppose you can use anything that's a good solid Bluetooth. I wouldn't go for some no-name $5 Chinese brand that's going to break its Bluetooth connection. We went with, I mean, I just happened to, literally, I picked them up for me because God knows I need more gadgets. So I picked them up at Costco. I just saw them and I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. They're $100. I can always find use for another pair of wireless speakers, I guess. And then we ran into the problem, and the next week I brought them in. I decided I was going to use them. What I like about it is they're paired. So the problem for us is we're social distancing, right? And I think we've had a total of 10 people in the room. I mean, it's a huge room, right? It's social distant. So being able to take these speakers that get fairly loud and spread, put two of them out. And I think I can actually add another pair if I could find them.
So I have a Bose, but this
That's
wasn't pair, but this wasn't, did you have to buy them as a pair?
These came as a pair. This came from Costco as two.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sure like the Bose would probably be loud enough. The problem is that you make it really loud and the people sitting on top of it are getting blown out of the room so that the people at the other end of the room can hear it. And if we were in a fixed space that was ours, we'd use house PA.
Right.
The problem is the house PA was a train wreck and it's not our place. So we can't we're not going to go invest in Shape Up's PA system. That didn't make any sense for us.
And
Right.
what about when the higher speed 5G or whatever comes about, technology is going to change again on us, right?
Well, not necessarily. That's actually a good point. I didn't talk about it. And Kevin spent some time talking about internet connectivity. And I think that was pretty interesting. You, I guess, have choice in the Inland Empire. In Orange County, we have this much choice in our internet provider. If you're residential, you're getting it from Cox or Comcast. And if you have Cox, you can't get Comcast. The phone company will deliver some crappy DSL 400-year-old technology that's not even worth having, right? So one of the things that we did is Shape Up has internet in the health club, which was great, but their wireless network didn't make it into the facility. So Robert paid an IT team to come in and figure out where all the cabling was, and they ran us a physical cable, and our kit includes our own router. Like, it's a Linksys router, $200 Wi-Fi router that is locked so that you can't come into our room and use our router, the router that we're using to broadcast and bring in Zoom. We're still using shared bandwidth, but it's 7 o'clock in the morning and there aren't that many people, especially in COVID, that we're fighting for the bandwidth, but it would definitely become a problem, right? But with 5G, theoretically, Randy, I'm in this business, so I can tell you 5G is not anywhere close to being able to do what it needs to be able to do. But in 2 years or so, 5G will just be a different way of getting all of this stuff onto the internet. So all this stuff will all be obsolete, but it will still keep working. 5G will just be a better way for us to get this signal onto the internet and get the internet back to us. So that actually would be a great thing because we could get off of shared Wi-Fi. Well, Suni has the information for our meetings. You guys are very welcome to join us. It was really great to be part of yours. I saw some people that have dropped in on our meetings. I can't remember the names, but I remember the faces, and I want to say hi to all of them. Thanks for coming to our meeting. We can't go hybrid in Orange County probably until mid-February, a best case scenario. Technically, we could go hybrid because the facility is deemed essential, but we don't feel comfortable and our members. We don't want to even put it in front of our members because we don't want anybody feel uncomfortable. So we're probably not doing hybrid until sometime in mid-February. That said, we have great morning meetings. If you're not doing anything on Monday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, you're very welcome to join us. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you doing this presentation and sharing that information. And yes, I will put the Newport Center Toastmasters info in the chat towards the end of the meeting. So we have about 13 minutes left before I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Tom. What I'd like to do during this time is a roundtable and get people's tips, suggestions, anything that you've seen that has worked well in Zoom or through virtual online presentations. So I'll just open it up and go ahead and unmute yourself and just feel free to speak right up.
I'll start. One of the things that we've done is I developed a polling, but it's actually the vote counter for it. And what I've done is that I've created a poll that has both the table topics, the best speaker and evaluator. And after the last evaluator, that's when I post it, I poll it, actually put it up there. And so what I've done is that I work every week with whoever's going to be the vote counter. I'll develop the poll because I have the client, and then I'll develop the poll, and it's always there because I've developed it once. I just use an example. And during the meetings, we just change the names, especially for table topics. We already know who's going to be the best speaker. We're going to know who the speakers are and the evaluator, so we go that route. I also use all of the backgrounds that's available on Toastmasters, the stoplights and just the solid backgrounds. And one of the recommendations, I was looking at their documentation, is that if you can, cover your mic or cover your camera so all you see is the background. So if I was to, let's see, but if I was to do that, with all you would see is the back colored, the background, the yellow, green, and red, and you wouldn't see the person's face at all.
Great, thank you, William.
Just speaking of polling, I recommend strongly for business meetings that people have a preset set of polls which simply say yes or no.
Yeah, that's all we do.
Yeah, it makes business meetings a lot easier to do votes on.
Yes, yes.
I have a thing to share, and I don't know if you can see this. This is just a box, and I took core foam board and covered it with microfleece cloth, and then my microphone is in here. Let's see if I can. And so I actually sit in a very large room, and when I'm recording training videos, using this setup makes first of all, it gets rid of all the echoiness, and it also produces like a much richer, deeper sound. And this thing cost me like $5 to make. So if you're having problems with your sound, you might want to just try putting something like this together and see if that helps the quality of your audio when you're recording or even when you're speaking in meetings.
Hey, Suni, I did the same thing with a plastic box and then sound insulation inside the box, about the same size box. And then my Yeti for doing podcasting and recording, like you said, is inside there. And you get a deeper, richer sound, just like you said. Yeah. And
Not
then
that you need it, Randy. You have
and it doesn't have
deep,
to be
rich
pretty.
voice.
Oh, thank you. It doesn't have to be pretty, but I did put a towel over top of it, believe it or not, just to get that extra cloth insulation, I guess you would say. And it comes out really well. And I think it costs $24 or something like that to do it.
Just to play off of William's tip about covering your camera when you're using a virtual background, I like to turn my camera off a lot, especially in meetings that are going very long. And you can always tell when someone has their camera off and there's a photo there. What I did is I took a screenshot of myself live in Zoom, and then I set that as my virtual background. So there's my virtual background. I cover my camera, and it's not quite as obvious that I have shut off my camera.
I go one step further when I do it, is I have on my other computer, not the one I'm using now, a video of myself.
Oh,
So it's not even stagnant.
that is a good idea.
Whatever you do, don't tell those students in school, because already they're not paying attention. They'll get that secret and they'll absolutely learn nothing.
I might have to try that. Oh, I love that. Any other tips, tricks?
I don't know if you'd consider this a tip or anything else, but I hope, I know I've gotten a lot, even as a presenter, I gained a lot listening to all of you tonight and the other presentations. And I want to make it very, very clear to everybody that the quality of the information that was transferred has a direct impact on all of us who are in business. The ability to produce really good audio and video, and Zoom and Toastmasters combined is an outstanding training platform. I started my own YouTube channel about 60 days ago, and I started loading a lot of these presentations up. Things that I'm getting, honestly, right out of Pathways. Pathways is a great place to find ideas for presentations, and you put it together, you put it out on YouTube. Well, the end result is I signed a corporate client today based upon what they saw on YouTube, and then they contacted me. So I've got a brand new coaching contract with it, and for those of us that are, all of us are here, I assume, in Southern California. The fact that it allows you to reach way beyond what you could do otherwise. The client that I signed today, they're in Wisconsin. I would never go personally to Wisconsin, but I have taught people in Canada, the Philippines, Mexico, all over. And it's so this platform and the combined Toastmasters plus doing Zoom plus everything you've learned tonight, it has tremendous potential monetary value all the way around.
Sonny, one of the things I was hoping we would have gotten from Bob Palmer, if you could have been here, and maybe someone else in the audience can talk about that, and that is that so many, his big issue was that so many clubs still have their brick and mortar location listed. When you go to look for a Toastmaster club to join, to find a club, you find the club, but it's meeting someplace and you don't get the Zoom identity information. Is anyone aware of how to get that changed for the public value?
Suzanne, go ahead.
I'll speak to that, having just put out our district director, and I've said comically, we put it out just in time for it to become obsolete. There is old information on there, and the good news is it's been out for us, District 12, as a PDF. So Michael Frith and I, who do that, will be updating it after we do our new officers, because that will be changing, as well as having those clubs let us know what their Zoom connection is. In addition to, many of them are able to go back because there's arrangements with somebody who's in the club who also works for the corporation. So that will be a sound go back to. But many of them, like my home club, Valley Toastmasters, Bob's Big Boy is not going to exist. So it'll be important for us to take that off and put it on. So for that part of information for District 12, it's a working document. So I can add that to the conversation, saying, yes, that Zoom link is important. However, if the officers are listed, and so right now the backup is to call an officer and say in person, if you can, I'm interested, what's your Zoom connection? So it's a work in progress. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. But something that he was able to do, and sent the information. I don't know that I've done it yet for my club, but when someone goes to the Toastmasters International website, they're looking for join Toastmasters and they hit find a club, they might go there, and a lot of clubs aren't entering their Zoom information. Of course, I hope maybe Suni can answer this. Has there been a lot of changes, been forced changes by Zoom on January 1? There seems to be people are saying things are different than they were before, and do any of those things have to change?
Well, they did push out a new update, and there are some changes there, but you only see the changes if you take the update. And they are enforcing the security requirement. You either have to have a password or put people in a waiting room. So there are some things that did get changed.
So a person that never has been to your club, that would like to visit your club, it's possible for them to get the information to show up, and that the worst case scenario, they just be put in a waiting room, and if someone's paying attention, they'll be able to let them attend.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's good.
And if the web page on Toastmasters.org for your club is out of date, there is a process for getting that corrected, and I can't think of it offhand, but I can get that information.
Can't you just? I'm not sure I understand, because Tom, I know that our club has this on your Toastmastersclubs.org. That's easy for you to modify, and that's where you put your real contact information. And so that's where I would go to look for a Zoom link. Now, frankly, I've kind of enjoyed saying, gee, I'm interested in going to a club in Nairobi. And so from Toastmasters.org, I say, what do people from Nairobi do? And so I can find them, and then I find their Zoom link.
Well, that's
I travel all over the world.
Yeah, the great thing about Zoom, and I'll pick on one of our presenters and said 8 months ago, I knew zip about Zoom, but now I know a lot more, but thanks to Zip. But anyway, the idea of being able to do that, to go and check and find out, but I don't think a lot of our clubs have updated their particular information.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important lesson. I went to a meeting the other day. They emailed out the agenda ahead of time, and it said right at the top, they reserve 5 minutes to exchange manuals. So I think it's really important that we reassess all our materials, our website, our handouts, our agendas, and make sure it's all updated to reflect our current environment. It's 8:49, Tom. I said I would give you the meeting back at 8:50. So at this time, I am going to turn this meeting back over to our chair.
Well, thank you so much, Suni. I'm so glad that you are able to use both hands after all the arm twisting I did to get you to do this for gestures. But you did a really outstanding job. And once we are able to see each other in person, I think I'm going to have to take you out to a steak dinner or whatever is your preference. And really appreciate the hard work you put into this, and the fact that you got such expert presenters. I thought that all of our presenters, all three of the major presenters, really brought in so much information. I'm glad that we're on recording, and so we can all go back. We may have to see some of those presentations 2 or 3 times before we can soak in all the wonderful information they've given us. I think it is important, though. Connie's over here taking notes, so I wouldn't want to take notes myself. I wouldn't be able to read them, but she's got some good notes, and we'd like to know about some of the, those products that were mentioned, the wireless microphones and the cameras, and I've heard about lighting and so on. So some of those really good things. Kevin, I do have to ask you, did you get your trophy yet?
I think it was delivered today, but I haven't picked it up yet.
Okay. All right.
I got a notification. I got a notification from the UPS store that I had a delivery, but I was busy preparing for tonight. So
well, that's good. Yeah, we want to
pick it up tomorrow.
Last month's meeting, I didn't actually send out a Speakers Bureau news talking about the winners, but we did have some good results. We had Kevin was one of the winners in Tall Tales. I don't think he gave us any Tall Tales tonight, except about how good looking he was. Other than that, the rest of it was pretty truthful. Anyway, and then Michael Alexander, who's here, was second place in Tall Tales. So, and then Michael will next month, we've got all kinds of exciting things going on. Next month, Michael will be going for his QS in our district. And I will tell you about the rest of the program coming up after that. In humorous, we had Dan McGill and Richard Snyder. And Richard has gotten his trophies already. I know that because we met him in person. And Michelle Altheister, who had to apologize for not being able to make it to the meeting, actually made it to the meeting and won table topics. And if those of you who weren't here know that we used the old rules from 30 years ago, and they had to use the word blunder in their table topics. And she ended up coming in first. Richard came in second. So we had all kinds of fun with the contest last month, a competition, if I have to use the right politically correct word. And so that was the things that we did last month. We had a lot of learning going on tonight. I really appreciate the presenters coming, and hopefully some of us will get a chance to visit that hybrid meeting. If that may be in our future Zip, I hope to be able to stop in and see how it works, because it's quite challenging and quite fun to see what's going on. Our excitement coming up in the next few months. Next month, as we said, we will have a room for one person going for their QS, and that will be Michael Alexander, along with an accredited speaker, Johnny Campbell, an old friend of Toastmasters from District 12, will be doing a presentation next month. And we might have room for a QS or someone else with an educational. Get to me and we'll figure that out. If you are working with a coach, with a student, someone to become a QS, let me know. Getting onto the agenda, because the schedule is filling up pretty quickly. We could get somebody in possibly in February, but we do have that. Johnny Campbell and Dr. Michael Alexander going for his QS. The next month, and we'll get the information about that. The next month, we have 2 accredited speakers coming in, and they will use the entire meeting. The one lady, I felt sorry for her because she is going to be coming all the way from New York, 3-hour time difference, and she pleaded to take the first hour. And so Rochelle Rice from New York will be coming in March, along with Connor Cuneen. The Irishman speaks, so he had a bit of an accent, so I'm looking forward to hear what he has to say. Accents are always
I know Connor well. He is a wonderful speaker. I'm in a club with him, and he's great.
Well, he was those 3, Johnny Campbell also, of course, as I know Johnny from years ago. He came to District 12 and about 10 years ago. But anyway, they were all recommendations by one of the greatest friends to our district. We have 2 super tremendous friends in our district in terms of Daniel Lamont, world champion and accredited speaker, and Cheryl Roush, accredited speaker. So they will be, Cheryl made the recommendation, by the way, she's moved to New York, made the recommendation of these speakers, and she used a designation I hadn't heard before, because it is, and I see what it is, it's certified virtual speakers. So we may learn something about good virtual presentations by accredited speakers. And then the following month, we have, I don't think she's here, Melissa Statesco will be going for her QS, a former division governor of the year, and she's an outstanding person. So we'll see what her presentation is. And we have hopes, I've had a couple of conversations and communications back and forth, of having a world champion. Last year's world champion, Mike Carr, it sounded like he might be able to come and speak to us during that April, May, June time period. And so we have a lot of exciting things going on. Kind of gave me a note. Is there something I'm supposed to?
The 2 accredited speakers will be given lots more Zoom information.
Oh yeah, they're going to give us more information on Zoom. So hopefully we'll be better at that. We really appreciate Sunny's efforts, because we pushed this didn't give her a whole lot of warning time to put this together, because we thought it was so important to do something in January, because we'll probably be having Zoom meetings for the next 6 months. And the more we can improve our quality of meetings, the less Toastmasters will lose, the more we'll gain. And let me see whether we have a little bit of time for my boss, Jose, see if he has any district announcements other than I think I squeezed in all my important stuff. So Jose, you want to share something with us?
Yes, thank you very much. First, I want to say thank you. What an excellent meeting. I learned a lot tonight about Zoom, and I thought I was learning a lot of stuff, but this was so good. I've been concerned about what's going to happen to the district after we can meet in person, because my feeling is that we will never go back to where we were before. So I was thinking probably most of our clubs are going to be hybrid. But now that I see all of the gadgets and difficulties that go into that, we will have to rethink that, and we will have to just wait and see what happens. But thank you so much. Excellent presentations. Every single one of your presenters, excellent. As far as the district, we have for the trio, we will start at mid-year training on Saturday. So the trio will be training on Saturday. But at the same time, we have CAT training. And Jeremiah is our chair for CAT this year, and he'll be conducting that. So I'll invite all of you to take that training so that you can help us become judges and help us with the contests that are coming up just around the corner. And that is all I have. So thank you so very much. Excellent meeting.
Well, thank you, Jose. Two things you mentioned that are so important. I know upcoming being trained officers, and I know you're anxious to have everybody to go to that. If I'm not mistaken, if they go to the Saturday meeting, they are covered if they belong to an officer of multiple clubs, like their treasurer here and the president there or something. But the best thing, of course, if you're a specific officer, is to go to the specific officer training, so you get a really in-depth training. Would you agree with those comments?
Yes, I think Suzanne wanted to mention something about that. Did you?
Okay, Suzanne.
A privilege. Yes, that falls under my program quality director training opportunities, and that is to present you with the finest that District 12 has to train, beginning this coming Monday on the 11th, going right on through to the second week. We will not have a training on Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, so the training will commence that Wednesday, and TLI is January 30th, the last Saturday of the month. And yes, the benefit and perks of that is not only will you have training, every office will have 10 minutes to train, but you'll also have the opportunity to meet a dynamic leader, a wonderful professional speaker, Dr. Kenesha Williams, who is very involved with the John Maxwell leadership training, will be our keynote at TLI. You don't want to miss what she has to offer as far as leadership goes. So, and it is true, Tom, you're absolutely right. If you go to TLI and you watch all, that will count. If you get trained individually, that's the in-depth training, and there'll be 2 makeups in February. So we have 4 opportunities for you to train. Our goal is to have 100% trained officers in District 12, because we know there's a definite correlation between trained officers and successful Toastmaster clubs. Thanks, Tom.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned something about, are you still taking people of interest in district leadership? If they submitted, if they were to let you know, someone know now they're interested in being a division governor or one of those things. We're taking names now about those things.
You are, and those would go to our district leadership chair, Jeremiah Lyle. So you would send that application and any questions about that. I think he'll be probably speaking more about that at his leadership training January 16th, which is the Emerging Leaders Breakfast. So he'll be conversing with all kinds of ideas. Yes, district leadership is, the qualifications are out there, but you need to apply, and you need to apply through Jeremiah. ASAP so he can get all that paperwork done, and then interviews are late February. So he's the man for that. Thanks,
I just
Tom.
want to put my 2 cents in because I know sometimes people are hesitant to sign up for those things. They might start out saying, well, I couldn't ever do that. What do I know? And I remember I said the same thing. You probably heard the story where years ago when someone asked me to be their assistant area governor the very first time. And I said, well, I wouldn't know how to do that. Just backed off and wouldn't do it. And finally they convinced me. He said, Tom, I need you to drive me to the meeting. So, because I'm blind. I said, oh, okay. Well, then the rest is history. And I've been following leadership ever since then. But as everyone I've ever known who was all the way to international president said, the most important thing they ever did, the most enjoyable experience they had was being an area governor, area director. And so don't be afraid to seek out district leadership. It's a great growth potential for you. And you do learn a lot, and there is always good training for you. So don't be hesitant to sign up to volunteer to help out, even if it's just an area director, assistant even. Okay, we know what, Sonny, you're gonna have to remind me, in February, what is our next meeting? I think it's the second.
How to look it up.
Oh, okay.
February 3.
February 3. I was going to say, I thought it was second or third, but I didn't want to say the wrong thing out loud. Hopefully we'll see you all next month, February 3rd. You're Johnny Campbell and Dr. Alexander. And if any of you QSs have a presentation you'd like to squeeze in there, 15 or 20 minutes, let me know about that. Or if you're working with someone, please do let me know who you're working with and what their basic goals are to seek their QS. Other than that, thank you all for being here, and thank you presenters so much for the presentation and the knowledge you shared with us. And thank you again, Sonny.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good.
Good night.
Take care, everybody.
We've been finding in a lot of clubs find out that go to your meetings early. I'm terrible. I have a nickname called the late Tom Jameson. But I found that getting to Zoom meetings 15 minutes early, and sometimes that first 15 minutes is the most valuable time of ever. So encouraging everyone to do something I haven't ever done in the past, and that's show up early. See? Okay.
Yeah, I like the socializing at the beginning and at the end. Not a lot of clubs do it.
I think it's really valuable.
Yes. And fun.
Some bonding, a bonding that goes on within your club and makes you part of that Toastmaster family, to use my theme from when I was district governor.
If you live in Northern California and you're seeing old District 12 friends, it's kind of nice to get there early so you can make touch with them, because I left District 12 in 2000, so that's been a long time. So it's great to recall memories and see so many faces on the leadership team that I was with, leading our district, and it's just brings back a lot of great things.
You have to get back up for a 7 o'clock meeting tomorrow morning, right, Greg?
You betcha. I got 1348 tomorrow, and then I've got 8731 in District 57 tomorrow night, and then I've got the Ukiah Club at 6:45 Friday in the morning, and then Saturday morning Toastmasters 797 and Saturday. So I've got a full schedule.
Hey, if you need a Wednesday morning, we have one. Coffee and Toastmasters meets at 7 a.m. on Wednesdays.
Well, I really enjoyed